Hi everybody. So in this video we will discuss the spirit of Renaissance. So the Renaissance is very important for everybody who is studying for UGC NET. Now the word Renaissance comes from the French word called re and naissance. Re means rebirth, or let's say again. Re, which means again, repetition, and Nesha means born, which means ki reborn, you can say. So Renaissance simply means the rebirth of a culture, rebirth of a classical antiquity, rebirth of a learning. So in one sentence we can say the Renaissance was characterized by a renewed interest in classical art, literature and learning. And this Renaissance, it shifted the focus from religion to humanism. Now, what is humanism? Well, humanism is a philosophical moment, an intellectual moment that emphasized the study of classical text and also focused on the human values and human achievements. So, in Renaissance, especially in the philosophy of humanism, we will see some of the most intellectual figure such as Leonardo da Vinci, Rene Descartes. He was a philosopher. Galileo. I'm sure you must have heard about the astronomer, the famous astronomer Galileo, right? And then Nicholas Copernicus, Thomas Hobbes, even Geoffrey Chaucer. He was a first Renaissance man, you can say. Then Dante, Nicolai Machiavelli. So these are very important writers. These are very important figures in the philosophy of humanism, in the spirit of Renaissance. Also, the spirit of Renaissance saw the old geocentric model of Earth given by Ptolemy was replaced by the Copernican heliocentric, which means that before Copernican, let's say before Renaissance, the view of the world was such that the entire universe revolves around the Earth. But later, when Copernican, he was a great mathematician, he was a great astronomer and philosopher, he said that no, everything revolves around the sun. Sun is in the center and the entire planets, they revolve around the sun. And this was a great invention. This was a great discovery, especially in mathematics and astronomy. And this marks the, let's say, beginning of the great era of science. And there was another very important thing that happened was a invention of the printing press. So printing press was another such establishment which advanced learning. It's obvious that when we can print so many different copies of a important book, then many people can read those particular book that are being copied, right? Now in England, 16th century marked the beginning of the English Renaissance. So there is a difference which I have already made distinctions between the Italian Renaissance and the British Renaissance in the previous video. Please go and check it out. That would be very beneficial for you. So when we talk about British Renaissance, we are talking about the 16th century, okay? Because 16th century marks the beginning of the English Renaissance. Now this Renaissance had different point of views. We can say that Renaissance was culturally rich because there was an advancement in art, in music, in philosophy, in literature, as well as in humanism. So as I have already mentioned, humanism, it was a philosophical moment, and there were many philosophers, who actually emphasized, on the study of classical text and they focused on the human values. Now, some of the important literary works in English Renaissance. Please do remember all these works are very important for UGC NET. They might ask you direct question related to this particular topic. So the first book of education written in English was Sir Thomas Eliot, The Book of Governor. So please do remember, they might ask you who wrote the book called The Book of Governor, or they will ask you questions especially in the match the following. So the Book of Governor, which was published in 1530, and it was the first book on education written by Sir Thomas Eliot, and a treatise on moral philosophy and education in which he placed great significance on the reading of literature. So, what are the importance of reading of literature? Was first given by Sir Thomas Eliot. Now, Sir Roger Ackham, again very important writer, and he wrote a very peculiar book called The Schoolmaster, and it's a very philosophical, it's very intellectual, because this book actually kind of, you can say, presents an effective method of teaching Latin prose and compositions. Not just the Latin prose, but how one should be teaching students. And also, it was against corporal punishment and the cruel treatment of boys in school. So back in those days, the boys in schools, they were treated very poorly. So he thought that he needs to write something philosophical, write something that might help students, to learn the great values. So we can say the Ackham's major concern was with the psychology of learning, and also it was focused on the idea of moral, we can say, civil, and intellectual personality that education might bring. Also, this very important thing you need to remember, that he was the first person who taught three important girls. So the first lady was Queen Mary. Queen Mary. Second was Lady Jane Grey. And the third was Queen Elizabeth. I'm pretty sure you are aware of the Queen Elizabeth because we are reading the Elizabethan age. Because Elizabethan age comes under the Renaissance, early Renaissance. So he also taught Queen Elizabeth. And with this, Ackham becomes an early proponent of education for girls. Now, this Ackham, he critiqued Mallory's Morte d'Arthur and expressed his dissatisfaction with the two important themes. Which, the first one was manslaughter, because early days, people used to talk about manslaughter a lot, and also the bold bawdry. Now, you must be thinking, what is bold bawdry? So, bold bawdry is simply a kind of, let's say, it refers to the language or behavior that is vulgar and indecent. So, in general, we can say that the school educations, they used to talk about manslaughter. They used to talk about, let's say, vulgar, indecent languages they used to use. So, it was also against these two important themes. Now, next work is George Gascoigne's Creighton, or you can say certain notes on instructions concerning the making of verse or rhyme in English. So he was giving a kind of instruction how people should write, if someone is writing in a verse form, if someone is writing a poetry or verse, how and what are the instruments they should be using it, है ना? So he was focused on the instruction of writing the verses, the rhyme verses. And it is also considered the first essay of English versification. So he talks about the versification of language, versification of poetry. है ना? Next work is The Art of English Poetry. Again, very important work attributed to John Putnam, because this book actually kind of written against the poets of that particular time. And because of that, Sir Philip Sidney had to write his very important book called The Apology for Poetry, or The Ars of Poetica. Now, Sir Philip Sidney had praised Spenser in his book called The Shepherd's Calendar, which was published in 1579. Very important work. And next very important work was William Tyndale's own translation of Bible, which was published in 1526. That's all for today. See you in the next one.